Hello everyone, this is part 31 of What If Naruto Was the Child of the Moon in Percy Jackson, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Annabeth, Naruto and Percy found themselves in a cavern the size of a Super Bowl stadium. Down below, there was no floor, just hundreds of feet below. They stood at a rock ridge that spanned the corners, and networks of metal bridges that spanned across it. In the center was a large platform with all sorts of machines, cauldrons, forges, and an anvil so large that only a god could use it. Everything was perfect, perfect for a blacksmith. But there was a slight problem for this smith's paradise. It was filled with monsters. The trio of demigods sighed. How were they roped into another dangerous quest for a god, for the second time I might add? Well, flashback. So, about this little side quest I will be sending you on, Hephaestus pressed a button on his workbench. Metal shutters opened along the way, revealing a grey mountain ringed with forests and smoke billowing from its peak. That's one of my forges, he explained. I have many, but this used to be my favorite. Mount St. Helens, Naruto said. Great forests, Grover agreed. Too bad Pan wasn't there. Back up, Annabeth crossed her arms in the air. You said it used to be one of your favorites. Hephaestus scratched his beard. Well, that's where the monster Typhon is trapped. It used to be in Mount Etna, but his force got pinned to Mount St. Helens when we moved to America. Great source of fire, I might add. There's always a chance he'll escape. The volcano is erupting these days, always smoldering. He is restless with the Titan rebellion. Naruto touched the seal on his stomach. Somehow, he could feel the kitsune stir within him at the mention of the ancient monster's name. So you want us to kill him? Percy asked. No, that would be suicide. As much as I don't want to admit it, even we ran from Typhon when he was free, the Smith god shuddered at the memory. Pray that you never have to face him. What I want you to do is investigate. Lately, I have sensed intruders occupying my forges. I would always find it empty whenever I go and investigate, and when I send my automatons, they never seem to return. Sounds easy enough, Percy said. There you go jinxing our quest again, Annabeth scolded. The smith clapped his hands together, and the spider swung from the rafters to their feet. Save the banter for later, he said. Go. My creation will show you the way. Do this and I will tell you where Daedalus is. The questers turned to leave, but before they left through the door, the god had one last thing to say, one last thing, stay alive, will you? You humans are much more fragile than automatons. End of flashback. So, that's how they ended up here on this little side quest. Hephaestus had been correct, there had been intruders occupying his forge. To add to that, Nico, Tyson, and Grover went the other way when they found a hint of Pan's power in a fork of a tunnel. Now, it was only the three of them. Even the stupid fox had been stirring up like crazy in his seal. I'll go, Annabeth said. She brought out her New York Yankees baseball cap, slipped it on, and disappeared. Naruto and Percy waited with bated breath. They didn't care about the heat now. Well, Percy didn't. Naruto was unaffected, being a champion of Hestia. They were more worried about Annabeth than anything else. Being ADHD demigods, Naruto and Percy couldn't stay put for long. They both crept along the outer rim of the lava lake, hoping to get a better vantage point. They continued on, until they were blocked by a cart on metal wheels, the same one you see in a mine. Percy checked inside, and it was half filled with scrap metal. They were about to squeeze their way through, but they were interrupted by gruff voices. Seeing no means of escape, the two boys jumped into the cart. As soon as they were comfy in the cart, they felt it move slightly. Oi! I can't move this thing, a gruff voice complained. Quit your yapping, of course it would weigh a ton. The second voice stopped as he tried to pull the cart himself. You're right, it's heavier than expected. We're lucky. We have a lot of celestial bronze stocked up. Whoever these two lackeys were, they were lugged into one of the smaller rooms, where a class was about to be finished. So class, what have we learned today? An older voice asked. Zeus is evil. A bunch of younger voices chorused. And because of that, who will we serve? Kronos. So when you're all big and strong monsters, will you make weapons for the army? Yes. Excellent, now we have some scrap metal for you to practice on. The two tensed. They were about to be found out. Naruto immediately grabbed Percy on the shoulder and focused on the kunai that Annabeth was holding. In a flash, they disappeared, leaving a class of disappointed monsters who expected a cart full of scraps. With Annabeth, the two boys reappeared in a large bronze cauldron, leaving the three in a really awkward position. What are you two doing? The only girl scolded. We almost got caught, Naruto said. I jumped us to you. By whom? She asked. The monsters here, Telkines if I remember correctly. Telkines, I should have known, Annabeth said. They're building something here. Take a look and see for yourself. Naruto and Percy snuck a peek at what Annabeth was pointing at. It was a large piece of metal. Sparks flew as four of the monsters took turns hammering. They keep talking about fusing metals. I wonder. Two Telkines burst out of a door into the main area. Are they here? The scent is coming from here. What are you talking about? One of the Smith monsters asked. We have intruders, one of the guards said. Then what were you thinking? Sound the alarms already. Alert everyone. Pretty soon, alarms were blaring all around the compound, and this time, not just one guard Telkine was out to sniff 'em out. After a bit of difficulty from the nine tails stirring, Naruto spoke. Percy, take Annabeth and get out of here. I'll be right behind you. Annabeth froze. The last time she heard those words, the results were disastrous. No. We'll fight them together. Annabeth yelled at him, with no regard for their cover. Naruto winced as he began to feel the nine-tailed fox's influence. Asserting back his control, he calmed himself. I know I keep telling you that teamwork will get us through anything, but we're pinned down right now, Naruto explained. I can't forgive myself if I ever lose you. Gee, thanks. Percy rolled his eyes playfully at his being ignored. Oh yeah, and Percy too, Naruto quickly added with a playful tone. Feeling a little better, Annabeth hugged Naruto tightly. I want you to promise me, Annabeth demanded. You'll come back to me. Naruto broke the embrace and stared into those gray orbs. It may have been Aphrodite playing with them or blessing them, but he felt his heart skipping as he started to get lost in them. Percy, if I don't make it, tell Mom I'm sorry. Percy tried to stay strong but Annabeth clapped both of Naruto's cheeks and cupped them in her hands. No, don't talk like that, Annabeth interjected. You're coming back to me. Promise me. Naruto smiled. I promise. And I never go back on my word. And just for insurance, Annabeth pulled Naruto's face to hers and captured his lips in a brief kiss. Annabeth, Naruto stammered. If you want more of that, come back alive, she commanded. Now go, buy us time. The bronze cauldron exploded, and all of the monsters' eyes were fixed on them. There were too many for Naruto's liking. So, to draw their attention, he painted a big target on his back. He got on all fours and stopped resisting the nine tails chakra. Red energy bubbled out of his chakra points and surrounded him. All monsters' eyes shot to him, stunning him completely from the sudden burst of power. Some slowly inched backwards, while the bigger ones looked at him with hunger. Strong demigod means yummy demigod. One of the stronger ones declared. There was a battle cry among the ranks, and they all charged the blonde. Percy and Annabeth took this opportunity and booked it for the labyrinth entrance. In the tunnels, those who weren't aware of Naruto's outburst lunged at the two, only for Percy to cut him down to pieces. It was only smooth sailing from there. Back at the main platform, Naruto was slicing through the ranks. Those who charged at him got torn to shreds by the chakra arms. None of them got any close. The smarter ones settled for the ranged approach. They scooped lava out of the furnace and threw the molten balls at Naruto. The red chakra kept him away from his skin, but it couldn't keep him away from the heat. Naruto roared savagely, the shockwave throwing a number of the Telkines back. The ground rumbled. The nine tails stirred even more. Naruto could feel it. The anger was not directed at the Telkines, they were more of a nuisance getting in the way. Rather, it was directed at something bigger and more powerful. And if what Hephaestus said was true, then the Kitsune was picking a fight with the strongest monster there is. Although, whatever the connection was between the two, it was anyone's guess. As Naruto roared, more of the sinister chakra was pumped out of his system. A fourth tail began to sprout. More of the corrosive chakra was poured into Naruto, causing his skin to burn off and his blood to stain the shroud. The monsters looked warily at Naruto, not knowing what to make of the new form in front of them. The humanoid growled. The four tails formed a ring around his mouth, forming a mixture of red and blue small chakra balls, gathering into a larger purple sphere in the middle. Even the dumber monsters knew well enough to fear whatever this attack was. They all started to escape. The humanoid fired, releasing its attack. It was like escaping from a nuclear bomb. Nothing was spared, not even the forge and the platform where they stood. Naruto, in the mini Nine-Tails body, found himself free falling down into the lava below. But then, the volcano rumbled along with a roar that was louder and more powerful than Naruto's own, asserting its dominance. With that roar, the volcano erupted. From the free fall, Naruto was shot upward. As he flew, the corrosive chakra receded, like it was forced back. For the first time, Naruto could feel fear in his fox he was keeping captive. It felt like it was running away with its tail between its legs. Naruto wasn't able to dwell on it very much as his body fell into unconsciousness. Some unknown place in an unknown time. Brother, it is too strong. A man shouted in exhaustion. The man was tall and pale. His hair was long, reaching up to his waist, and his bangs were short and hung to the left side of his face. He had small, horn-like protrusions on his forehead and white pupil-less eyes, with veins protruding around it. He wore a light, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar and dark pants. He had a sword in its sheath strapped to his left hip. Stand firm, brother, another man shouted back. Like his brother, the other man was a tall and pale-skinned man. He had spiky, shoulder-length, pale brown hair, with a chin-length, braided lock hanging in front of his left ear. He sported a short goatee. He also had a pair of horn-like protrusions extending from either side of his forehead and pupilless eyes, similar to his brother. He had a red Rinnegan-like marking in the center of his forehead. He wore a white, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar. Beneath it, he wore a necklace which was also made up of 6 black magatama. On the back of his kimono was a larger, black Rinnegan marking with a pattern of 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows of 3 beneath it. Fighting against them was a massive mountain-like animalistic abomination with 10 tails swishing behind it and a spiky protrusion on its back. Up in the sky, a silhouette of a woman in a long flowing dress floated right next to the monster's head. The battle raged on. Every attack from both sides obliterated the land, leaving it inhospitable. Eventually, the monster was subdued, leaving the woman as their final opponent. The two brothers braced themselves. They had a feeling that they were in for a longer and fiercer fight. In an unknown island, Naruto drifted to a beach. He was motionless and unconscious. The skin was completely burned off his body, leaving him a heap of red flesh. The dream had been forgotten. He had not even noticed it happened due to his injuries. A lady happened to be walking by the beach. Seeing Naruto's condition, she rushed to the boy's side and tended to him. She began to sing. As she sang, the Mafu instantly worked its magic, healing Naruto. It was not complete, but it was enough to keep the blonde stable. Rest and heal, brave one, she told the blonde. No one will harm you here. A day later, Naruto's complexion had returned. His skin had fully regenerated. His eyes drifted awake. He tried to sit up, but pain coursed through his body. He may have healed, but he wasn't at 100% yet. His body still remembered the torn muscles and injuries he had sustained. Then, he remembered Annabeth and Percy. He prayed to the gods that they had gotten to safety. But in his condition now, there was nothing he could do. Heck, he didn't even know where he was. Answer, he just looked around. He found himself in a cave, despite that everything seemed homey. He had seen a lot worse than this. First off, the ceiling was decorated with different colored crystal formations, white, purple, and green, the same ones you see in souvenir shops. Not only that, different herbs and spices hung from it, reminding Naruto of his adoptive mother. His bed was comfortable, with feather pillows and cotton sheets. The cave was divided into sections by white silk curtains. Against one wall stood a large loom and harp. Against the other were stacks of jars containing fruit preserves. On one wall, there was a fireplace built into the wall, and a pot was bubbling over it. It smelled like beef stew. It smelled great. It wasn't ramen, but Naruto knew he could eat it all day. Naruto groaned as he sat up. Everything hurt like hell. He examined himself. The skin over his entire body was pinker than usual, like new skin had grown. His clothes were different. They were a white cotton shirt and white drawstring pants. With difficulty, he stood. His sandals were nowhere to be seen, so he was barefoot, which was a bad idea as the floor was freezing cold. Ignoring the sensation, he marched his way to the daylight. Being a son of Konoha, he loved nature, from the lush green trees that reached for the sky and the gurgling streams where he rested when he trained. So, it was safe to say he enjoyed the outside of the cave more than the inside. The cave opened into a meadow. On the left was a grove of trees, and on the right was a huge flower garden. 4 stone satyrs sprayed over each of their fountains. There was a path in the middle sloped downward, leading to a rocky beach of a lake. He couldn't tell. Seeing no one there, he followed the path. There was a girl standing on the beach. She was around the age of 15 or 16. She had cinnamon-smelling caramel hair, braided over her left shoulder. She wore a white sleeveless Greek dress with a low circular neckline trimmed in gold. She seemed to be arguing with someone. Who that someone is, Naruto couldn't see as he was shielded by the reflection of the sunlight off the water. Deciding he needed answers, he walked towards the beautiful maiden. He tried to keep his balance, as he felt his muscles have only recently healed. Upon reaching the girl, he found that she was alone, but her eyes were puffy from crying. "How are you standing?" The girl looked at him in shock. "You shouldn't even be standing yet." "I get that a lot." Naruto scratched the back of his head, letting out a chuckle. "More importantly, who are you and where are we?" "I'm Calypso, we're in Ogygia," Naruto interrupted. "Figures, though, I must say, the myths don't do you justice. You're more beautiful in person." For a being that existed for thousands of years, Naruto's words seemed to affect the timeless lady. They were just genuine words of compliment, but she couldn't help but blush. She cleared her throat to regain her composure. "Well, thank you." "Well, this sucks," Naruto complained. "We're on a time-sensitive quest, and I managed to get stuck here." "The gods have a funny way of playing on those they have power over," Calypso said, like she was one of their victims. "I can't stay here," Naruto said. "Believe me, you may think you've healed but you haven't regained your strength yet." "Well, watch me." Naruto turned, only for his legs to give way. Calypso knelt over Naruto and looked over for injuries. "You're tired, brave one. You've been worrying about your friends your whole quest. It is your turn to rest." Calypso was right. Naruto was tired. They had been constantly moving in the labyrinth for God knows how long. Time was warped in there, so he didn't know how long he had been moving. He once again awoke in the cave. Feeling a little bit better, he joined the Titaness waiting outside. In the outside world, light pollution had snuffed out the stars, constellations had disappeared. But here, in the Phantom Island, all the stars were out shining brightly like diamonds carved into black canvas. "What do you see, Naruto?" she asked. "This reminds me of home," he said. He was right, of course. In a place where satyrs dreamed of going, pollution was almost non-existent. He was reminded of his childhood. The days where he would train himself till he was on his knees. He would camp out with a fellow workaholic named Rock Lee and stare at the stars, dreaming of the day they had proven themselves to the villagers. His gaze fell back onto the earth. He realized he had not introduced himself to his host. "So, you know me," he said warily. "You are not my only visitor," Calypso explained. "Hermes visits me from time to time. He tells me of a hero who has shaken the godly world. It is an honor for you to wash up on my island, Kraken Slayer." Naruto blushed. He had almost forgotten about that with all the quests he had been going to these past years. He was tongue-tied. Calypso giggled at him. "Now, are you just going to stand there or are you going to help me plant these?" Naruto took a look at her garden. She was planting some kind of plant that was glowing in the moonlight, just like his mother's cabin. Naruto smiled. He immediately knelt in front of the Titaness and assisted her. "You know, knowing you as a fighter, I would never dream of you knowing a thing or two about gardening," Calypso commented as she watched Naruto plant the piece of grass. "Surprised, huh?" Naruto smirked. "Gardening just came naturally to me, I don't know why. I mean I'm not a son of Demeter or Dionysus." "You sure have," Calypso nodded. "Either way, you seem like a natural." "So, what is this plant anyway?" Naruto asked. "This is moonlace," Calypso answered. "It can only be planted at night." "I see." Does it have any medicinal properties? He asked, the ever-inquisitive one. Does it have to? But I can tell you. Its purpose for existing is providing beauty. I suppose that is enough. Say, were you the one who changed my clothes? Is there a problem? One teensy problem, don't you think it's inappropriate, 'cause you know, I'm a boy, and you're a girl. Calypso's cheeks were starting to heat up. Clearing her throat, she amazingly held her composure. You don't seem well, demigod, she said, with a flat tone. You need some rest. But, I'm not. Naruto tried to argue, but Calypso was firm. She did not take no for an answer. I will see in the morning, she said with finality. Good night. She watched as Naruto reluctantly made his way back to the cave. She did not want to send him away this way, but she didn't want him to leave the island just yet, or ever. She looked up at the stars. She had never cursed her punishment as much as now. Naruto found Calypso intriguing. He had told stories of his childhood, his missions in the elemental nations, his quests in the land of the gods, his training at Camp Half-Blood. She would listen to him, curiosity evident on her face, but she would never talk about herself. Naruto was okay with that. He had read about her in the myths, but as he said, the myths don't do her justice. In the time he had gotten to stay here, he had come to know her. She was more than just the stories. Whatever the case, she reminded him of a Disney princess. But unlike them, she did not need to sing to attract the animals. She merely held out her hand, and they would approach her, lorikeets, parrots, doves, whatever was on her island. She would greet them good morning, ask how it was going back at the nest. She would get a cheerful chirp as a response, then they'd fly away. As he stayed on Ogygia, he found that he couldn't keep his eyes off of Calypso. He would find himself staring at her while he assisted her in the garden. He would notice how she brushes her hair over her shoulders, and the little strands of hair that fell to her face as she dug into the soil. Sometimes it would be the other way around. Calypso would steal some glances on Naruto while he planted some seedlings on her garden, or whenever he was doing manual labor, especially when he was doing manual labor. During these times, they would catch each other staring and share a smile. But the odd thing was, Calypso would pull away and her smile would be replaced by a sad expression. One night, Naruto and Calypso were sharing dinner at the beach, a hearty meal of beef stew and apple cider. Naruto may have had ramen deficiency syndrome when he was stranded on the island, but Calypso's cooking was making him change his worldview on ramen. Once again, the both of them tried to steal a glance at the other, only this time they both caught each other. Skillfully, the two tried to play it off. But again, just as soon as they were vibing, Calypso would pull away. This punishment is hard on you, isn't it? Naruto asked. Calypso nodded, but remained silent. She was at the breaking point, and it was only a matter of time. You will leave this place, eventually, Naruto promised. Don't say that, Calypso shook her head, the fates are cruel, Naruto. I am forever banished to stay here on this island. I will never be permitted to leave. Screw the fates, Naruto declared. You. Thunder rumbled. Naruto actually felt scared. Were those three old ladies actually listening to him in his rant? Was he doomed for running his mouth like that? Whatever this was, they watched with bated breath as a column of fire descended upon the beach. The column of fire approached the beach. Calypso had a hint of fear in her eyes. I mean, who wouldn't when your home was about to be consumed by a blaze? Slowly their faces started to relax as the flames started to shape into a man. One had a look of recognition in his face while the other had a look of confusion. Hephaestus-sama, Naruto exclaimed in glee. Knowing what happens to people who get stranded on the island, he thought he would never leave. Calypso looked at the blonde in confusion. This had not been what the god looked like in the first war with the Titans. Naruto, I see fate had chosen to send you here, the smith god greeted. And Calypso, beautiful as always, I see. He studied both their reactions, and focused on Calypso. I see. We haven't seen each other in quite some time, have we? Well, I should get used to reactions like this. Yes, Hephaestus-sama, Calypso bowed. It was rather startling to see you in your new looks. The god nodded, and sat clumsily on one of the picnic tables. So, Lord Hephaestus, to what do I owe this rare honor? She asked as the god ordered a can of Coke. I came because of him, the smith god pointed at Naruto after a long swig of the carbonated beverage. So, will you excuse us for a moment? Calypso bowed and left. The two men watched her leave. When the boy was sure she was out of earshot, Naruto spoke. Is it time for me to get back on the quest? Naruto asked hopefully. That is not for me to decide, Hephaestus shook his head. You do know how this island works, right? You sure are taking your sweet time. They're all worried sick of you. I know that, Naruto exclaimed. If you know I'm here, why didn't you tell them? It is not my place to say, Hephaestus said. That is, assuming you are coming back. Of course, I'm going back. My friends need me. The god studied him skeptically. I'm sure you are. Now for the second reason, I'm here. He fished something out of his pocket, a metal disc that resembled an iPod. He pressed a button and it expanded into a tablet. Still uncertain about further eruptions, the newscaster was saying. Authorities have ordered the evacuation of almost 500,000 people as a precaution. Meanwhile, ash has fallen as far away as Lake Tahoe and Vancouver, and the entire Mount St. Helens area is closed to traffic within a 100-mile radius. While no deaths have been reported, minor injuries and illnesses include. Hephaestus switched off the video. You caused quite an explosion. I see. Naruto didn't know what to say. He single-handedly caused the displacement of countless people from their homes. All because the Nine-Tails was picking a fight with whatever was trapped inside the volcano. You seem to be taking this well, Hephaestus studied the blonde. Are you aware of what you have unleashed? The Nine-Tails was angry, Naruto said. He was picking a fight with something. The beast inside you can sense the ancient monster even with the seal in place. Hephaestus stroked his beard poking out of the bandages. Anyway, I will not pretend to understand the sealing arts, that would be your job. It is your clan's birthright, after all. Anyway, I take it you met my wife some time ago. Yeah, the blonde nodded. Is she responsible for sending me here? Who knows? It's hard to say, the Smith god shrugged. In case you leave here though, I promised a way to navigate through Daedalus Maze. I'm listening. You've read from the stories that the string was the key for finding your way through. That is only part of the solution. Sure, the string works to some degree, but the true answer lay within Ariadne herself. There was no trace of godly blood in her, but she could see more than even some half-bloods can. I see your mind is beginning to wrap around the solution to your conundrum. Is that why I can see the right path? It is faint, but it is there. Originally, you were supposed to be born mortal, yes. But with that incident with Artemis, things changed. Now that you're here, your godly blood is slowly getting stronger. But you're different somehow, there's something there that's different, I just can't quite place it. What are you talking about? Never mind. Ignore my stupid rambling, it's probably just nothing. You're strong enough as it is. The better question is, are you willing to leave this place? Naruto looked towards Calypso, who was watching him longingly, no doubt preparing for bad news. Calypso saw Naruto's gaze turn towards her, causing her to look away. I can't leave her here, but I can't leave my friends to fight against the Titans. Naruto said. Hephaestus turned to see who Naruto was looking at, just in time to see his fellow immortal scamper away. You're faced with indecision. I understand, wait until daybreak, that would be the best time to make decisions. I guess you're right, Naruto fell into his comfortable chair. But what if I get out of here? Will he even help? If the dreams were correct, then he'd sooner sell us out to the Titans. Hephaestus sighed, I understand that man completely. After all, I was just like him, always alone, always misunderstood. His start was well enough, Theseus and Ariadne. In his effort to do a good deed, everything went to shit. Was that fair? Nobody knows. Even I don't know if he'd help you, but when you meet him, all I ask is don't judge him until you've stood at his forge and worked with his hammer, eh? Naruto nodded. I will do that. Good. If you'll excuse me, I better get back to Aphrodite's cookies. She'd throw a fit if I didn't try her baking. You've done me 2 favors so far. I will remember you for that. That farewell sounded permanent. He erupted in a column of flames, and the fire moved to the water, heading back to the outside world. Camp Half-Blood. It was a tough decision to make. On one hand, he wanted to keep Calypso company on the island. He felt like he owed it to her because of the god's stupid and paranoid decision. Plus, being all alone like this, there was no better person to understand her than Naruto, himself. On the other hand, he had to get back to his friends. They had to know he was alive, they had to know how to navigate through the labyrinth. He walked along the beach trying to decide on what to do. But he was torn between the two. He walked for a long while until he found himself back at the meadow. It was very late, or very early depending on your perspective. Calypso was tending her garden under the starlight. The moonlace glowed blue. The other plants glowed red, yellow, and blue, responding to the magic. It's hard being alone, isn't it? Naruto said. Have you experienced it? Calypso asked. Naruto nodded. Basically my whole childhood. Imagine getting shunned, ignored, and even punished for a decision you didn't have control over. His knuckles clenched. You and I are more alike than you would think. I see. Calypso cupped Naruto's cheeks, her touch sending a shock throughout his body. All the more reason for me to offer it to you, but from the start, I promised myself I would not offer. Naruto was curious. What could she be offering to him that she was having second thoughts about? A place on my island, Calypso answered. You could hide away from the pain and sorrow of your home. You could stay here, build a life here with me. You could live the life you had never lived. Naruto understood, but he had to decline for the sake of his friends and the camp. I understand, Calypso said, but the hurt was evident in her voice. You were sent here by the fates for a reason, such as my curse. I'm very sorry. I truly am, Naruto said. He could sympathize with her, but there was nothing he could do. A hero, someone who she could truly fall in love with, would be sent to her island. It wasn't a bad deal on the surface, but the catch was there always had to be a catch. The hero could never stay on the island, never accept her offer of companionship. There was always something he must go back to, a quest or a family. I understand, she tried for a smile. For what it's worth, I enjoyed our time here together. She picked up a sprig of moonlace and placed it on Naruto's hands. They stood there hand in hand as the first streaks of daylight lit up the sky. Her face inched closer to Naruto's, who was staring into her eyes. Their lips touched for a brief moment, but Calypso pulled away, afraid she would hurt herself more as she allowed the blonde to leave. Calypso's expression changed. The hurt disappeared like nothing happened. Now then, I believe it's time for you to go home, young hero. She took Naruto back to the beach. They waited for a while, until a raft washed up to shore. It was a simple one, nothing special about it. It was a simple 10-foot square of logs lashed together with a pole and a simple white linen cloth for a mast. It did not look very safe to ride on. This will take you to wherever you desire, the sorceress explained. I guarantee that it is quite safe. Naruto took back her hands, but she let them slip out. I will come back for you. I promise, Naruto said. Don't make promises you can't keep, brave one, Calypso shook her head. No man ever finds Ogygia twice. Naruto fished out his pen and clicked the button on the end, transforming it to its true form, a pair of forest green tri-pronged kunai. He pocketed one of them and kept the other on hand. He then fished out a scroll. He applied chakra to it, and out came a bowl of ramen from godly Ichiraku. He handed both to Calypso, who curiously took them. It was still hot, like it had been freshly prepared. The kunai was a gift from my mother when I was first sent to this world, Naruto explained. I'm giving this to you as a seal of my promise to you. The jutsu formula will serve as a homing beacon for me. I will return, fates be damned. I never go back on my word. That's my nindo. And what of the dish? It's a dish from my favorite food stall in the world, Naruto explained with a grin. It's the food of the gods. The food of the gods is ambrosia, Calypso disagreed. Naruto scoffed. That thing might taste good, but nothing compares to the glory of ramen. Calypso giggled. A little part of Calypso wanted to believe. Against her better judgment, she took the bowl of ramen and handed it to one of her invisible servants, who whisked it away to her kitchen. The kunai stayed in her hand. She studied the intricate markings. It was a language she had never even read before, and she was 1,000 years old. You are such a sweet and determined boy, brave hero. Fine, Calypso said. If you are not able to fulfill your promise, I will not blame you, such is the fate of my curse. But until you are able to return, promise me this. I'll do anything, Naruto said. Don't forget me and the time we've shared here, Calypso said. And plant a garden for me in Manhattan. I promise, Naruto said. They shared one last look before Naruto made his way to the raft, water walking on the way. At this point, nothing could surprise her anymore. He climbed onto the raft. When he was settled, the raft began to drift off. Line break. Hours of traveling alone were murder on the ADHD demigod. What will you do in a magical raft that will whisk you away to any destination? He was also worried. Getting trapped in magical places like Ogygia tend to keep you there for longer than expected. The raft landed on the surf of Camp Half-Blood. The place looked solemn, like it was in mourning. A bad feeling sunk into his gut. He wandered around camp. It was deserted. None of the campers were going through the daily activities. The climbing wall rumbled with lava flow all by itself. The archery range or sword arena didn't hold any classes on that day. Then, Naruto saw the smoke billowing from the amphitheater. His blood ran cold. If he had been gone for weeks now, then maybe, oh gods, they had to know he was alive. After weeks without a word, we should presume he is dead. As much as we would like to hold up hope that he is still out there, Chiron began the ceremony. Sobs could be heard from the crowd, most likely from the Aphrodite cabin. It is unlikely that our prayers will be answered. May I ask his dearest friend to do the final honors? Percy stepped forward. I don't know what to say. I could have gone in his place, but he put himself above his friends. He was brave, strong, and cunning. He was the best prankster, and the son of Poseidon was at a loss for words. He had a lot of things to say, but he would never get the chance to say it, for standing at the back of the crowd was the very subject of this funeral. It was Naruto Uzumaki, himself. Naruto was all he could form in his confused state. Why'd you stop? Let me hear the whole thing, he managed to joke. Before anyone could say anything else, the Aphrodite cabin erupted to go and meet him, but there was someone faster than them. She shot to her feet and tackled the boy to the ground. She sat on Naruto's chest and gave a well-placed punch to the boy's face. Okay, I deserve that, Naruto said. The girl didn't answer. She wrapped her fellow blonde in a hug, like this was their final embrace. Instead of being jealous, the daughters of Aphrodite were touched by the scene. Some pumped their fists, while some exchange of money happened to others. About time these two got together, Clarice said. I told you, Chiron, Kakashi said. This boy will surprise you in more ways than one. Yes, Kakashi, I believe you now, Chiron said. I have never been happier to see a camper return like this, but where have you been? Annabeth released the blonde from the bone-crushing hug and looked at him straight in the eye. Yes, Naruto. Where have you been? Annabeth, Chiron calmed the girl. Perhaps we should take this to a more private location, Ignoring the protests of the campers, he picked the three from the quest and galloped to the big house. Big house. So Naruto, Chiron began. Tell us where you have been. Well, you see. Naruto told the story about a deserted island, where he nursed himself back to health after giving everything he had to wipe out the monster army. He had stayed there for 2 weeks, until Hephaestus found him and told him that they were worried sick about him. Then, one day, a magical raft came to transport him back to camp. Deserted island, magical raft, Chiron muttered, piecing together Naruto's story. I see, he finally looked at the demigods present. You are one of the lucky, or perhaps unlucky ones depending on how you look at things, to have been sent to the untethered island. Ogygia. Annabeth raised her voice. All this time we were worried sick about you and you were just fooling around on some deserted island. Calm yourself, girl, Chiron said. It was not his choice to be sent there. If I remember correctly, only a scarce few are chosen to be sent to the island, am I right? Percy said. Naruto, this puts your luck on a whole different level. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. You got that right. He shifted his gaze to the daughter of Athena. I'm sorry, Annabeth. It took longer than expected to recover. But if it's all the same to you, I came back, didn't I? I know you still need me here. Annabeth blushed at that statement. He knew that the blonde shinobi was talking about the quest, but her heart couldn't help but skip a beat at the double meaning of what he said. Why, you better be sorry, she stuttered out a response. Because if you didn't come back, Mom would be devastated. Percy chimed in. Yeah, what he said. Annabeth added, gaining back her confidence. I know, Naruto said. I really am. Now that we have established that, Chiron continued. I believe there has been a new development in your quest. Annabeth's eyes brightened. Hephaestus told you the way to navigate through the labyrinth. Naruto nodded. He told them exactly what the Smith god had relayed to him. You don't mean, Percy began, but Annabeth beat him to the punch. That's crazy. Annabeth's jaw dropped. No, there is precedent, Chiron argued. Theseus had the help of Ariadne. Harriet Tubman, daughter of Hermes, constantly used mortals when she was building her underground railroad. Annabeth's eyes widened. Her teacher, the one who had taught her everything she had ever known, was actually siding with this idiotic plan. But then Naruto spoke up, which was the last straw for the daughter of Athena. If it worked for them, Annie, it would work for us. Even you have to admit that we need a mortal on this quest. Annabeth had a look of shock and resentment on her face. She had never thought that two of her closest friends would not side with her. Even her oldest teacher had suggested something so unthinkable. She couldn't bear it. She felt betrayed. Without saying another word, she stood up and stormed out of the room. What's gotten into her? Percy asked. Leave her be for now, Chiron said. She is just having a bad case of jealousy. I get that she doesn't want to leave the quest in the hands of a mortal, but why else would she be jealous? Naruto asked cluelessly. Percy slapped his forehead at the denseness. Should we tell him, Chiron? Percy asked the immortal teacher. The centaur did not answer his question, but he did say a few words. Do not dwell on matters that will disrupt your focus on this quest. For now, we will not dwell on that any further. You came back. That is what matters. Percy shook his head, an action that only confused the blonde even more. After that, he went back to business. He remembered that fork in the road when they got separated from his brother and his best friend. What about Grover and Tyson? Will they be okay? That, I do not know, Chiron said with worry. Juniper is quite distressed. Her branches are turning yellow. The council has revoked his searcher's license in absentia. If he returns, and that is a very big if, he will be forced into a shameful exile. How could they? Grover has gotten closer than any satyr has ever been, Naruto snapped. Unfortunately, they have full authority in this scenario and I am outnumbered in the votes, Chiron said. We shouldn't have let them go. Percy lamented. The two of you are connected to the young goat. You of all people should be able to tell if he is safe or not. You're right, was all the two boys could say. Oh, and one more thing, the centaur added. Great, more bad news, Naruto sighed. Okay, Chiron, Percy said. Lay it on us. Actually, I have two, he began. Our guest, Chris Rodriguez. The two perked up at the news. They recognized that name from when the two friends were bunking at the Hermes cabin back when they were still unclaimed. He was one of the campers that disappeared when Luke betrayed camp. Now, to think they found him in the labyrinth of all places. How is he? Percy asked. He is weak, and Clarice did not want to leave his side. I had to order her to return to her daily activities. I applied all my knowledge on medicine, but nothing is working. He would not take anything. I'm afraid he has lost the will to live. Percy was surprised by what Chiron said. All his life in camp, he had known Clarice to be a bully. They had clashed countless times, and Percy could not imagine her as the caring type. That sucks, Percy said. Which one, the fact that Chris had gone insane or the fact that Clarice could be kind for once, Naruto remarked. I admire this boy's spirit, he was still able to joke around at a time like this. The second one, actually, Percy shuddered. I will never look at her the same way again. Chiron broke the two out of their banter. There is one more depressing news, he said. They braced themselves for the news. What could possibly be worse or be as depressing than one of their fellow demigods driven to insanity? Quintus has disappeared. Percy and Naruto perked up. They were honestly hoping that there wouldn't be any more betrayals by then. But I suppose they're wrong. Was he just really another spy for Kronos? Percy asked. I mean, it can't be a coincidence for him to order scorpions who just so happen to be also supplying monsters to the Titan army. Chiron sighed heavily. Somehow, he had been more stressed from the recent years. I was hoping we would not lose any more campers to the Lord of Time. Kakashi had been sent out to scour the place. He was unlucky. I guess in a world of gods and monsters, even the best trackers will have a difficult time. Naruto sighed. What about Mrs. O'Leary? Is Luna still keeping her company? She was left alone in the sword arena with our resident dire wolf, Chiron said. She would only let Bianca get near her. I did not have the heart to put her in a cage or destroy her, not that she would let us. I never thought Quintus would leave her just like that. Like I said, we have been wrong about him. In any case, the three of you have much to prepare for. You're right, Chiron, Naruto nodded. We'll go on ahead now, Percy said. Chiron nodded and the two boys left him to stare at the fireplace. Sword Arena. It was right before dinner. Mrs. O'Leary sat dejectedly at the sword arena grounds. Luna was trying to cheer her up, but to no avail. Just then, the two dogs perked up as they picked up the scents of their masters. Two black blurs were suddenly upon Naruto and Percy as soon as they entered the arena. Stop, stop, both boys yelled as they were being slobbered. Let up, girl. I can't breathe. Naruto couldn't believe her eyes. The small direwolf pup that they found way back in the back of a Kindness International truck was now more than twice its original size. In any case, the two boys gave the two doggos the love that they needed and fed them a pair of extra gigantic dog biscuits. Where's your master? Percy asked. Mrs. O'Leary whimpered. It seems that the man had left without the hellhound's knowledge. You never cease to amaze me, a voice said. Mrs. O'Leary growled, but Percy calmed her down. Naruto turned to look at who was approaching and smiled when he saw his old sensei. So, how was your trip on the magical island? The Jonin teased. You know. Naruto raised an eyebrow. When everyone at camp heard you had been blasted into the sea, they immediately speculated. So basically everyone knows, Kakashi explained. I guess I'll get teased a lot now, Naruto lamented. That is the least of your worries, Kakashi said. Are you sure you're 100% ready to return to your quest? That's why I'm here. Naruto raised his voice. I'm going to train till I drop. That won't be necessary, Kakashi advised. I have a better idea. Your two friends can join us if they want to. He brought up a pair of bells and gave the two boys an eye smile. Think you're up for it? Percy and Naruto shared a look and smirked at each other. Bring it on. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.